Alright, it's Henry again, and as 2012 is upon us, I figured I would just take a minute to make a little recap video, just showing off all the kits that I've completed in 2011. So the first kit that I did this year, back in January, is the 1:144 scale B Club Nightingale, as you can see spinning in front of you. Now, when I reviewed this kit, it was a glossy, shiny finish, and I've done a few changes to it. I flat coated the entire kit. The gloss just wasn't working for me anymore, so I flat coated everything, and I added some wires to the kit, like up under the neck on the beam rifle. You can see some here up under the giant back skirt and around the waist, and just made a few small modifications to the kit. Next up was the high-grade Universal Century Sinanju. I actually bought this kit back in October of 2010, but I had to wait until the waterslide decal set came out in December before I could ever get around to painting it and decaling it and all that, so I ended up finishing this guy around February or somewhere around there. Next was the largest kit in my collection so far, the Perfect Grade GP01. And I think this kit turned out really nicely. I put a lot of effort into it, especially the painting and the multiple colors on the inner frame and things like that. And I just think that this is probably the best Perfect Grade I've done so far. Hopefully there'll be better ones and more in the future though. After the Perfect Grade GP01, I did a 1:100 scale high-grade Gundam Nataku. Obviously changed up the color scheme a bit, changed all the dark green to red, all the light green to pink, and did some modifications to it, removed some panel lines, added some pla plate, a few extra details, things like that. And basically this is just something to do with my Nataku, because I think it's pretty obvious we're eventually going to get a master grade of this guy, so why waste a perfectly good high grade? Next, I did the Resin Gundam Girl as a build-off with the Jabman025, and this was a repaint for me. I bought this kit years ago and hand-painted it with cheap acrylic paint, so I wanted to strip all the paint off, repaint it with airbrush, and make it look nicer, add some new decals. And to this day, I'm still amazed that I was able to get her to stand up without an actual display base. Up next was the Master Grade Gundam Death Scythe Hell EW, and this is a kit I did pretty much a straight out of the box color scheme, except for the digital camo on the back of the wings, but everything else just some subtle pre-shading, and overall really good kit and halfway decent paint job, I think. Next, I painted the 1:100 scale B Club Geara Doga. This is a resin kit that I got off of E2046, so it's a recast. But it was a pretty good recast, and I did a lot of cleaning up on it, and I think it actually turned out really nice. This is actually one of my favorite kits that I've done this year, and I was really pleased with the way it turned out. After the Geara Doga, I bought, built, and painted the new Master Grade Shenlong Gundam EW, and again, like Death Scythe Hell, kind of just did a copy the box art paint job, used all the standard decals, a little bit of pre-shading. I think it actually turned out pretty nice, except for the blues and reds were a little bit darker than I wanted them to be, but luckily I figured out how to fix that on my later kits. My next kit was the enormous 1:100 scale G-System XS Gundam. So large it's not even going to stand a chance of fitting on that little rotating display base. But I put well over a month's worth of work into this thing, and a lot more frustration than I would have liked to, but I think the end result did turn out pretty snazzy, and I'm glad I finally completed my first G-System kit. Next up was the Master Grade Gundam Epyon version EW, and this is another kit that's one of my favorites from this year. I'm just really pleased with the way the colors turned out on this. I think they look really nice. And it was just overall a really fun kit to build, and I think it was a popular kit. A lot of people got it, and certainly a contender for Kit of the Year. Don't know if it'll actually get Kit of the Year, but definitely a contender in my opinion. After Master Grade Epyon, I started my big summer project, the Tallgeese project. And this is the first entry into that project, the Tallgeese 1 in 1:100 scale high grade. Did some modifications to it with the elbows and the hands. Got everything painted and masked. Did some custom decals. And I think they actually turned out pretty nice. And of course, after the Tallgeese came the Tallgeese 2, pretty much the same deal. Just did the plot plating on the underside of the skirt armor, hands and elbow joints modified, custom decals, the whole 9 yards. And again, I think it turned out really, really nice. And the third entry into the Tallgeese project was, of course, the Tallgeese 3. You know, this Tallgeese project I had actually been planning for quite a long time. I think I'd first thought up the idea back in February, even though I didn't get around to actually starting the project until July. But I think all the effort really paid off, because it's the biggest project I've taken on so far, and I think it actually turned out really, really nice. And the final entry into the Tallgeese project, even though it's not even a Tallgeese at all, the customized 1:100 scale Leo. I almost said scratch built, but that wouldn't be quite accurate, seeing as how I based this off of a 1:100 scale Tallgeese. And I'm really, really proud of this kit. There are some things that I could have done better, and I've taken note of that, and might see some things like this again in the future, so who knows. Just keep an eye out. Next up, in the month of August, was the Master Grade Delta Plus. This is another one of those kits that I just wanted to buy, build, paint, and review as soon as it came out. Namely just because I really like Gundam Unicorn and I like the Delta Plus design. Did a little bit of a, I wouldn't really call it camouflage, just kind of a block pattern color scheme. And used kind of a brownish gray rather than the light gray it was molded in. Although I think I could have gotten those blues a little bit darker, but overall I think it looks pretty good. And next up was my repaint project of my 1:100 scale B-Club, Resin, Gundam Heavy Arms, and Sandrock TV versions. And this is the project, or one of many projects I've had in the past, that took way longer than it should have. Just everything took longer. The articulation, the build, the painting, everything. On top of that, my airbrush breaking down in the middle of the project didn't help at all either. But overall, there were a lot of frustration and time. I think it actually ended up being pretty nice. And next up, I did yet another Gundam Sandrock, the Master Grade Sandrock EW. And I bought this kit when it first came out, but the shipping was kind of slow. I ended up starting on it about a month after its release date, but I got it painted and all that pretty quick, so that was a pretty quick little project for me. It turned out nice too. And my last project of the year, just completed about a week ago, the Master Grade Wing Gundam Verka. Again, a kit people have been begging me to build and paint forever and ever, and I finally got around to it, and I think it actually turned out pretty nice. There was quite a bit of frustration with the decals fogging up, but then again, that's not the first time it's happened to me. Luckily, I know how to fix it, but overall, I think it turned out pretty good. Alright, that about does it for my 2011 wrap-up video. I think 2011 was a better year for Gunpla for me than 2010, and hopefully 2012 will be even better than 2011. So, here's wishing you guys a Happy New Year, prosperous 2012, and I'll just end with a little preview of my first kit for next year.